Hello and welcome to another tropical BuildASoil YouTube episode. This is our tropical 10x10, and I say that because we're hoping to grow some fruit, tropical plants, house plants, as well as food. And today we're on episode 4. For today's episode, what I want to do is just give you an update because it's been a little while and show you how things are growing. I've also got a beautiful earth box full of lettuce. It moved from the floor up. I want to explain why I did that. I want to harvest it because this is a lot and our family should be eating this, not just growing it. So you should harvest it before this, and I will go over my normal plan with this. The other goal is in the next week, I'd like to bring in another earth box and some other containers and plant a whole bunch more greens so that we can actually capture more than just lettuce. There's lots of greens that I like to grow. They grow quickly, and the goal in this tent will be to do lots of food for us so that it helps generate some offset of the cost of having the utopian paradise, right? It's gonna take a long time to grow some fruit. But let's do the walkthrough, and then I'll do some transplanting because I also got some other random pickups. I went to Home Depot and I kind of impulse bought some stuff. I really want to buy all of our plants from like reputable dealers, trade friends for them, order them online from the place to get it. But being winter, it's hard. And so Home Depot already having a great plant that was growing in the store, I thought, all right, I'm gonna go for it. So I'm excited to have this opportunity here in the tropical 10x10. And then we also got some blueberries. And this one was already growing there from Home Depot, so we need to get it transplanted. But let's get started. Let's start at the beginning. I wanna explain a couple things that I've done. So we had a couple of fungus gnats brought in with some of the house plants. And so to treat that, I used a mustard seed meal that we offer. It's really just a soil amendment, and I've noticed there's some white papers on it, on how the actual active compound in the mustard seed meal, what happens is when it gets wet, it activates an enzyme, and that enzyme's been proven to kill fungus gnat larvae. Now that's not our intended use. We mix it in our soil to biofumigate it, and the reason why that works is the mustard seed is typically grown or amended into fields where commercial strawberry farmers grow. What's great is normally they have to use a lot of toxic chemicals to do that fumigation because the strawberries are really susceptible when grown in a monocrop to a lot of these fungal issues. So what they've noticed is that if they clean the soil, so to speak, they won't have that issue. And either growing the mustard seed crop and tilling it in or spreading the mustard seed meal, it accomplishes that result. And there's methods of doing it. They might cover it to make sure it has its effect, where here we're just gonna sprinkle it in. But I wanted to just encourage you to research that. We have a single species mustard that we order in specifically. We mix it into a lot of our soil because we don't sterilize the soil. The BuildASoil way is to bring a living soil. And that means lots of compost that's full of life and lots of rock dusts and things that actually make a real soil, not just like cocoa core and perlite, like a lot of the house plant potting soils. But we notice better results doing this. And one of the main things is we don't want to sterilize. We want to benefit from all that life. Just like on our stomach, where our gut and the health of the quality of the food we eat starts to steer the biology in our stomach to keep us healthy, the plant doesn't have a stomach. And so its biology is gonna be in the soil and its root system for how it picks up its food, and it's imperative. So you'll notice this white, not mycelium, but a lot of people call it that, this bacteria that's growing on here. And this is actually matted down quite a bit. It's all cloudy when it first appears. And the reason why I put it on all the plants in here was I was doing a test. We've noticed that this mustard seed on certain plants can be a little bit harsh. It'll burn the edges of the leaf just a little bit, and then the plant will grow out of it. But it seems like houseplants just don't care. Look at all the new growth, how shiny and luxurious it is, and the new tip growth, all after we applied this material. So not only are there no fungus gnats in here, but it's providing nutrition because it's an organic seed meal. And unlike soybean meal that produces an oil or a food for animals, it's heavily GMO Roundup sprayed. This mustard is all organic, and it's byproduct from an industry that uses the mustard seed oil to power their tractors so they're not burning fossil fuels. And then it also improves agriculture, and it helps with BuildASoil. So part of the BuildASoil way, you can see that this one has it. I mean, look at this one, all white up in there. Pretty cool. This is the begonia, and it's got lots of new growth, really pretty to see. This leaf here, new growth there. There'll be a gnat or two flying around still. There's rove beetles running around in there, but this basically eliminated it. And I love sharing what tools work for us. So that's pretty cool. I'm really happy to see this begonia taking off like it is. It's so pretty to see those new leaves like that. It looks like a flower opening, and it's just a leaf. And you can see new growth there, everywhere based on that transplant. So now it knows that it has enough energy and food, and it's gonna start showing off. Start doing tricks, I say, just because A lot of times our houseplants, we don't get to see them really take off because we have them under normal hours of light and under something that's not very intense, and they kind of stay just in stasis. And that's great, that's what we want. It's not a lot of work, they look beautiful. But when you put them in an environment like this, which I'll go over in this episode one more time, what our environment's like, but with the quality of lights and the humidity and the temperature, we can start to see flowering and all sorts of stuff because we're only on 9 hours of light in here. I might go up to 10. It did affect the lettuce quality, I think, a little bit, having the light so far away and also only being at 9 hours. So I moved the lettuce up closer to the light, and it made a significant difference. I also think I could have extended the daylight just a little longer, but I really want to encourage the coffee. It's not supposed to have as many hours. And some of the tropical fruit, it's more equatorial. They're not supposed to have as many hours. But I'm learning too, you guys. So don't take everything I say as the gospel truth. I'm just trying things and we're gonna document it here. I'm pretty sure we're gonna up it to 10 hours and see how that does. And I'll show you when I get back to the coffee plants, which are finally growing out of their frozen shipment funk. I'll show you what looks like they might be starting to flower. And so I might click it up to 10 hours because I really do want to encourage them to grow healthier before they start expending any energy towards fruit production. Let's go through the whole walkthrough before I get into it. So I showed you the mustard seed meal. That's why you're seeing that beautiful white mycelium everywhere in here. And then you can see this one, the alba, beautiful new growth. I love its variegation on there. And so we're gonna see what it does. You can see aerial roots starting to come off and all these new nodes. That's a really good sign of health. And then you can see this one here. It's got little aerial roots shooting out everywhere, and one of the leaves is really green, so I'm optimistic that that'll start growing. Got new tip growth here on this one, so I'm hoping that finally rooted. When we put that in there, it was bare. No roots on it, where the alba had some roots already going, so I knew it would take off faster. And the goal with this one is to separate them all out, take clones off of it, and share these because they're such beautiful plants. But just need a little more time to get roots on those two. And then coming over here, we've got this mandarin one that I was like, why isn't it growing? It's looking funny, like it's not trying to grow. I think that it just 9 hours of light stopped it from its vegetative growth. There is some new growth coming out here, and it's looking much prettier than the old growth that was like from when it was a house plant at the store we got it from. But one of the things that's unique is look at all these flowers. I've never seen that before. So that's why it wasn't going through vegetative growth. It immediately, when it got to 9 hours, started switching over to flowering. And you don't see houseplants do that as often, but that's because of the number of hours. So I'm gonna click it back up to 10 in hopes that I stimulate some vegetative growth. I want it to get bigger. But it's fun to see what happens, and we're just learning. So it's kind of doing tricks for us. Another one that's doing tricks. Look at this croton. This one already, it's dropped everything. In fact, I'll just pull it off. But look at this one, it's still hanging, dropping pollen, flowers. They're beautiful little flowers. So I don't know enough about this to tell you exactly what's going on, but no odor really. I see some pollen dropping. You can see it all over. So I'm sure it's doing something. I will look it up and I'll see if I can find anything. If you guys know what the croton's doing, if it's gonna produce seeds or if it's just flowering and that's it. But it's really cool to see. And then since then, a whole bunch of new leaves going. So I'm guessing it's just gonna keep stacking these leaves and then flower and stack leaves and flower. And so we'll just keep watching it. You can see all that beautiful white growth in there. I wanted to make sure that I was testing everything. And this, I mean, all the houseplants, they don't even care about the mustard. It's pretty cool. They just keep on growing. This one hasn't been transplanted and I'd really like to, but we did top dress with some kashi blend. And I did top dress, I think, with a little bit of that mustard. You can see the growth in here. Look at these aerial roots. They're getting longer and longer. They were like an inch. This one's like a foot. This flower has opened and closed and opened and closed, and now it's got more new growth coming out. This is our first new silver sword leaf. Look at how shiny it is. It's just beautiful. This is what you can expect when you start using high quality living soil for even just your houseplants. And a lot of people are like, I don't have a green thumb. I'm like, well, it was in some rotten, wet cocoa core with peat moss with no drainage, and it just rotted. Like you saw, we even had a rotted plant here that was right from the gardening store. And so once you give them a chance, and you know what's going on, everything goes wild. The lettuce, I really want to get to harvesting, so I'll show you, but this aloe was almost dead after transplant, and now it's got tons of vigorous new growth. And in fact, the parts that were dying were trying to come back. So I'll probably cut those pups off and we'll use them and we'll let this just grow. Eventually we'll up pot it and transfer it. That aloe is looking beautiful. This houseplant, I could kind of show you, but lots of new growth coming on it after the transplant. Really pretty leaves. This one's one of my favorites. I just love the neon. And it didn't mind the mustard at all. You can see lots of mustard in there. In fact, you can see a dead fungus gnat or two right there because they get trapped in it. They don't like it at all. Cool variegation on this one. Some green stripes and the yellow and all the neon growth. So I really like seeing that. I feel like this is just gonna dangle. We'll be able to raise it up. Because the humidity, it's getting aerial roots coming out everywhere. I think it's a great sign of health. I really like seeing how this pothos is growing. And it's one of my favorites because of the bright colors, I think. It's so like, it's just bright, and I really like that. This one, lots of new growth on the jade. I did put some mustard in there. This one got a little shocked when I moved it up into the light, and I'm just gonna see how it does with the brighter light. But it definitely, this leaf was used to being further away. And so part of having all the houseplants is finding a spot that it enjoys the light the most. And I did start cranking this up. In fact, it's all, nope, not all the way, but it was pretty close because I really want the lettuce to perform. And when it was all the way on the floor, and we're only on 9 hours, it was a little bit weak. And I want that crunch. I want it to be like good texture to it when we go to eat that. So I'll come back and I've got scissors and we'll bag some of that up. These rubber trees are just going crazy with new growth everywhere. And so that's really good to see. You can see the bright colors coming out of the new leaves as they haven't received enough light yet. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. So it's really liking the humidity and the light schedule that we're on. It's not slowing it down at all. Then we've got the new one, which looks like I kind of crunched a leaf, but still lots of new growth, and they're starting to get bigger and healthier than they were before since transplant. And so we'll see, we'll just keep documenting it. I've got new growth coming out of all the new node points. Pretty cool to see. This one did not like the mustard. So the melon is the only plant in the room so far that hated the mustard. You can see it burn some of the edges of the leaf. And there's a couple of leaves that, well, those were just ones that were plucked off, but you can see how it just didn't like it. And so we'll discuss that, but before we're wrapped up today, I'm actually gonna unbend this out of here. It kind of climbed up and got stuck and then fell down. I'm going to lift all these up and I'm gonna attach them here so they can start to vine. And then hopefully these melons will pollinate, and we'll talk about pollination indoors because we might have to help them self-pollinate by flicking them a little bit. So that should be pretty cool. The holy basil did die. I had some really old seeds in here. I was hoping it would work. And so once it died, I just didn't really tend to it, and I haven't replanted it. The lychee tree, it's struggling, you guys, but lots of new growth coming on. So there's all the new tip growth, new leaves, and I think that it's gonna be exponential. It's gotta get some new leaves out to start giving itself some energy. And it is just fighting for itself right now. New tip growth here, 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 kind of budding out of everywhere, but it's very slow. And maybe that extra hour of light will help. I will say that it's growing so slow, I veered towards the side of caution and I didn't water it quite enough. And now I made sure that it has enough moisture, and I do see more aggressive growth. So I think this one's just gonna be like, hope we make it, right? I'm just gonna try my best. We'll see. This flamingo lily, brand new, this fully unfolded, and it's so cool to see how it unwraps around to reveal it. And obviously it changes color and age as it goes. This is one of the leaves that were grown since transplant. Huge, beautiful, shiny leaves. And you can tell down here too, the mustard, it didn't mind at all. Lots of new growth coming in, lots of new little shoots. So this is gonna really fill in and have a lot more flowers and add a lot of color and beauty in here. So I'm pretty excited about that one. The money tree, Pachira aquatica. You can see, didn't mind the mustard. It's got lots of it in there. It maybe has affected it. So we'll take a look at the new growth and see, but lots of new nodes shooting out of here. And so it's better than it was when it was in its little cup, but I think that it's just gonna show off its new growth here soon. A lot of this is older after transplant and transition. So we'll see. Yeah, look at all that new growth. I think we're in a good spot right now with this one. I think all the new growth is gonna look really good. Curious to see if the mustard affected it, but its effects only last like a day. So even if it did burn it a little, it'll grow out of it. Next, over here, let's get to the coffee plants, and then I'll get to harvesting the lettuce. So we can see lots of new growth on all the coffee plants, and it actually looks pretty healthy. But the old growth is still there and is making it ugly to me. And so I will do a little bit of trim work today. What I'd like to do is just remove all of the dead leaves, go throw them in the worm bin. I can actually just chop them and drop them. And you can see the cover crop has gone crazy in here, which is helping me manage the moisture. And I can also leverage the cover crop to see, are there any issues? And so some of the cover crop wasn't growing quite as healthy. And I suspect that in the beginning, it was a little bit because of the moisture. And so now I think it's growing through it. The cover crop, the clover, all of the new growth started to look really good. But I've been kind of mashing it down as I go. And that also, it doesn't like it, but I don't want the cover crop to be the main. So when I'm doing this, I usually chop and drop. And I do have some scissors. But look at how much of a difference it makes just already. And look at all the new coffee leaves growing out the side of the branches all over. That's a really good sign. So as we continue to defoliate and all that's left is the new growth, this plant will look a lot better. So I'll grab my scissors and I'll do it right. And I'll probably do some chopping and dropping here. Wow, lots of new growth down here. It's pretty cool. So It's almost like it's better where the light's not as bright, so I might have to lower the intensity a little. But I did want to mention, so if you look in here, see how the new growth, like it's shooting out here? That's different than the new leaf growth that we were seeing. So I'm thinking maybe those are gonna start to throw some flowers for the first time. I kind of want to discourage that. I don't want it to put its effort when it's not so healthy into production of the flowers for the coffee fruit that would then have the coffee bean in it. And so I think I'm definitely gonna do a little more research, but I'm gonna add an hour of light in here and we'll just keep going. I've been bottom watering in earth box and they both have plenty of water right now and I'm testing that. So we'll see how that goes. So there's one more plant here and you can tell that it's got lots of new growth, but it's not quite as happy way over here out of the light, and I thought it needed less light, and so we'll see. I gotta do a little more research, find out what this one really wants, and when I figure it out, I will tell you. But that's half the fun of having a million new varieties in here. I'm not an expert on all of them. We will figure it out because it's a passion. And so far, it's really tropical in here. You can't tell, it's only 36%, but when we open the tent normally, 70% humidity in here. Like 77 degrees, 70% humidity in the middle of winter. It feels so nice. Let's get going on the lettuce because I really want to get that done. And then if I have enough time, we're going to transplant today too. Otherwise, I'll be recording several videos this week because I want to put mulch in here, show you part of the BuildASoil way is mulching, not having bare soil like this. I really want to tend to pruning those coffee plants. I've got to plant the strawberries, so lots of content. I may not get it all done today, but that'll be the goal, is to document all of it for you. And then watch and see what happens as we go. This is one of the most important parts though. I just want to show you how much food comes out of your own little system. Had I had 6 of these in here with different varieties of greens, I'd be feeding my whole family already, and it's only been a month. So it's something to really remember, is that while we're doing this, you can be feeding the family, enjoying the psychological benefits, having the warm environment. And I mean, you can get like an AC Infinity 10x10, I think it's 500 bucks. You don't have to frame out a whole room in your house for it or build a crazy greenhouse. If you've got a workshop or a bedroom, you can put a 4x4 tent. Put some racks in there. It doesn't have to be a walk-in. It can still provide a lot of these benefits. So I got some random bag, and I've got the lettuce. And so normally what I do is I just come in, and it's kind of hard, but I'm just cutting off the lettuce so that I can keep it. And see how I'm not cutting all the way down? I'm leaving some so it can just regrow and regrow and regrow. And you can do this. What I normally do when I harvest it when it's about half this size, and I harvest enough for the night. And then the next day I harvest more, and I go around harvesting little quadrants. By the time I get back to the beginning, it's regrown in this spot again. So I never have to harvest it all at once. But one of the benefits, one of the things you have to learn about when you're growing food is that you must harvest, because it keeps things coming back in an even keel. It keeps them healthy and it keeps the food vital. And so what I mean by that is you don't want stuff rotting and like decaying. You want it to be full of that turgor, that energy. So for me, what I'd like to do to bring this back to life is harvest the entire bed. Had I started harvesting when it was much smaller, I could do my whole rotation through it. But since it just needs to be done, we're gonna harvest all of this. I'll bring it home. If I can't eat it all, some of it will go back into the worm bin and then come back into the garden. And then we're gonna start some more of these. But for now, let me just get after it. I'm gonna show you how much we produce, and then we'll go from there. Oh, it's crazy how much comes out of here. Make some space for myself here. I mean, it's crazy. That's like what you buy at the store for a few bucks, and it's like you can't even tell we harvested anything out of here. You don't have to be perfect. I'm just going across, kind of giving it a haircut. Some of it will die, some of it will grow back, and you can pick out some of the stuff. But realistically, it's just for you. Kids love this too. They can harvest right from here in your house, and then you guys can go make dinner together. And maybe they'll actually eat some greens if they grow it. And if they're not, that into it, they're not gonna eat just straight salad. You can obviously soup the salad up with more stuff, more toppings. But a lot of times, at least you get, like I've said many times, you can just put it on a burger or put this in your tacos for taco night or whatever, and now you're getting some really vital living food that wasn't shipped in. It's got all the enzymes that we're looking for. I've got another bag here. I'm just trying to see how far I can go. Okay, now when you're done, you can actually go through, because you can kind of see the rows of 3 rows of seeds that I made. And you can actually go in and clean out some of this stuff so that it's unlikely to rot. But honestly, as you do this several times, you'll notice that it's not that important to do. and that the new growth will grow up. And since you're harvesting off the top, and it doesn't have to be perfect, it usually works pretty well, but I don't want to leave it to be all just caked in here to rot. My wife would probably be like, you need to do it much cleaner. We have opposite styles. Sometimes I'm a little bit messier and she's a little bit more organized, and I think we complement each other really well that way. But that's good enough for me. That's a ton of lettuce. I know I'm leaving it kind of mess. I will definitely come back in here as it starts to grow again and probably pick a few things out. But I don't have to top water. It's a bottom water through the earth box, and so I think it should be pretty easy. I'll take some of this and just feed it to the worm bin. Look at these feeder roots. All those roots. That's what happens in the earth box. It's really neat. There's little predator mites in there and everything. It's fully alive. But those roots are just matted out in here all the way down to the bottom. They drink all the water, and it just produces non-stop results for your kitchen. So I'll put this back where it was so we can keep it closer to the light, and we'll see how it does. Another few weeks, we'll have more lettuce again. And if I start harvesting on time, I can actually go around in quadrants here instead of like I just did. So pretty good amount. I'll set this over the side. Feels pretty heavy. This one bag are kind of overstuffed. I put that off too long and the lettuce starts to wilt a little bit. So at least we got it harvested so I can take it home. But I do have some more stuff. Let's at least do some cover crop chop and drop. Show you what I mean by that. So I mentioned that the cover crop, when it grows in, and we do this for any type of growing, whether it be indoor on cannabis, indoor on houseplants, outdoor in your raised beds, or even on our farm. If we do grow cover crop, there's two ways to do it. One is as a living mulch like this, where it's secondary and it's growing along with. The other way is to grow the cover crop between your cycles. So you grow the cover crop on the farm field, then you till it all in as green manure, then you come in behind that and plant your crop, and it uses all that nutrition. We can do a little bit of both here, and so this is growing along with it, and my main reason was because I knew this wasn't vigorously growing, I didn't want it to sit in too much water. So when I bottom watered, my idea was to have the cover crop in here to make sure it balanced that, and I didn't overwater it because lots of plants are drinking from the same reservoir. And I think it works well, and I want this to continue to grow, but I want to slow it down. So I'm just gonna come in and give it a little haircut, and it'll slow down some of it. Some of it will start to die and turn into plant food here. Some of the worms will come up and break it down and eat it, and that'll be part of this whole process. And now I've got this covering the soil, so it's no longer bare soil, and we're basically growing our own mulch here, and I really like to use mulch, and that's a very important part of organic gardening, organic farming. And so just keep going here. Now I've got our own mulch, and then some of this that I didn't cut all the way, it's just gonna start growing back, and then I can chop more and keep it going. At some point I can terminate it all, and I can even put a cover on here if I really want. Some people put a plastic cover over to keep it so that all this turns into food even faster for the plant. But the coffee plant's a little slower growing, and I think this is as far as I'm gonna go for now, and it already looks more organized than being so overgrown. Let's do this one real quick. This is our 12 seed cover crop, so it has lots of diversity, lots of clover and vetch and legumes and field peas, and I know I said legumes, which clover are, and peas, but it's okay. Variety, it's an important part of organic farming as well. So this is a 12 seed blend. See all the different varieties in here. And they all do different things to the soil. And you know, on the outdoor farm, they all do different things depending on the weather. So that diversity is important for many reasons. But even indoors, I like to follow the same principles, and that's part of the BuildASoil way. Here, just be careful when you're shooting in there, you don't cut your fingers. That's about all there is to it. Now some of that will slowly grow, some of it will die, and I think that'll feed itself to these plants. The other thing that I really would like to do in here is come in and clean this up. And so I can see a new tip growth there, but this leaf is basically completely given up. And so I'm just gonna toss that down there. Let's see if I can do this whole plant, make it a little bit prettier, and then see if it really enjoys that or if it doesn't like it. I bet you it's gonna be happier after I do this. Anything that looks ugly is going right now. There's enough new leaf growth on here. I'd rather it look like it just got a haircut than have all this old growth I was leaving on there. This whole branch is dead, so I'm just gonna cut it off. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's okay, they're plants. It's kind of like getting a real haircut. It might bug you, but it's gonna grow back. It's gonna look pretty funny. I'm taking so much off. But this is how you learn, don't be scared. It's completely woody and there's no new growth, I'm just gonna remove it. But this one's got new growth all over it, so I can leave it. This one doesn't, so I'm just gonna cut it. There's no point. Then I can let it focus that energy elsewhere. I think that's mostly all the old leaves now. I do want to add another hour of light in here. I'm going to show you on the next episode. I'll show you the environment. We're running by this NIWA controller. This is reading the humidity and the temperature, and it turns the lights on and off, and I've got things plugged into it. I'm going to go in my app and I'm going to add one more hour of light on here. In the next episode, we'll talk about the environment a little more. Okay, I don't want to spend the rest of the day trimming this coffee plant too, but I'm going to do that. So if next episode you see it's haircut just a little bit so we can see all the new growth as it comes in. I'm not going to touch that one, it's kind of limping, but I do want to get to these melons over here. So let me show you what I've got in store for us. I'm going to move this over. You can just use regular scissors, but I got some wire clippers because there's wire inside this. This is what I'm going to use because I had it handy. Use whatever you have. String, it doesn't really matter. The whole goal is we just want to clip these up so they can start vining. And getting closer to the light. Wow, look at that. That's amazing already. I kind of want to separate them, all their little vines, so you can see there's from the soil up. Now what I can do is find where I'd like to put it, and it'll start to vine on here on its own. But I'm going to support it a little bit. I'm going to grab some wire here, and I'm gently just going to twist that up. Went a little overkill, but these are reusable, and I can cut them up into smaller pieces later. Now I don't want to leave it completely dangling. I think I'm going to give it a couple of spots of support. I'll let this dangle, because what happens is this will start to get turgor, and then they spin as the day goes until they hook. And it'll start to vine on its own now that we've given it support. And I intended on doing this a while ago. As soon as they got little, I wanted to vine them on here, but I thought, oh, I'll record, I want to document it. And then I put off another day. See the next one here. Okay, there we go. This is great. This is already looking better. Okay, this little bit of work will make such a big difference. I'm glad we're finally doing it. All right, now that it's done with the whole mustard phase, it's probably going to take off with growth. Plus the mustard feeds the soil. I think I'm going to let these dangle and see what happens. Okay, well, I've got lots more that I'd like to do today, but I think we're going to wrap it up. I really want to get these blueberries and the grapes transplanted, so I will just keep those. I think they're going to do fine in their little bag for a little while longer. Tomorrow, the next day, I'll record that, and that'll give us more to talk about. And at the same time, I'd like to plant some more greens, so we have more of the lettuce. And I also have some cactus that I really want to plant, some cactus seeds, and lots to talk about as far as that goes. So we're just going to keep documenting. We'll do this for years. There's going to be plenty to talk about. I've had a few of you reach out and ask if we would take a plant in. I would love to. And so if you've got plants you want to send us, I would love to grow them here. We don't have a system here, so like when customer service gets the email, how to make that whole process work. I can't take them from everybody, but a few of you have reached out, and I've really wanted to take your plants. So we will start that as well. And then the hopes is we can return the favor. Like as that alba grows and as some of the other house plants get bigger, we can take cuttings and maybe for friends, you know, part of the series, and we reach out and get to know each other. I think that's half the fun of having plants is you get to take a snip off and bring it to a buddy's house. Here, I brought you a plant, and they can root it up and grow it. So I hope that this is fun for you. It's really rewarding for me. If you've got questions about any of this stuff, we talked about a lot of random things. Post them up in here. We talked about the mustard seed meal today. We talked a little bit about the grow environment. We talked about the coffee, chopping and dropping cover crop. We haven't put mulch in, but that will be coming soon. I really want to talk about mulch and its benefits and why we do it. And of course, in your houseplants at home, you may not go and put mulch in, but we've got cats at home. So I use mulch in a different way. I'll put gravel, or I'll put marbles or pretty rocks or crystals, things that keep the plants or keep the animals from digging in there, but also benefit the plant from being like a mulch, whether it's mineral or whether it's organic. So we'll talk about all those different things, and that'll be coming up in the next episodes. Otherwise, just thank you for watching. I hope that some of this stuff works out. We're kind of just doing live in action, and that's always part of the fun. So thank you. Subscribe, like, tell your friends. And until the next episode, until next time, we'll see you guys on the next Tropical 10x10 series video.